the boss's view. You gotta sacrifice. You wanna move like bosses move.
YMA, Young Millionaires Association. Yeah, see, that's the association. Joe.
All right, guys. Welcome to YMA Nation Podcast, episode number 25.
25.
What number?
25.
That sounds like a lucky number. Lucky number 25.
It does.
Lucky number 25, guys. I am Joe Wallace, and this is
Rebecca Wallace.
And we are excited. Are you ready for the championship game?
I am. Not. But whatever.
I think she's talking about a Clemson team, guys.
It's okay. I recovered. I went through my day of mourning.
Okay.
I'm okay now.
You said I got my Hurricanes on.
I got
so
my Clemson shirt on.
Win or lose. You got to ride with your team.
Win or lose.
Win
you
or
win
lose.
some, you lose some.
There you go. You can't win everything.
You can't win every single time.
It's impossible.
It's impossible.
Impossible. There's no team out there that have went 10 seasons undefeated. Got to the championship game 10 times.
It's all right. It's all right.
If you are on right now, make sure you like, comment, and
subscribe.
Hit that notification bell. All right, so let's start off, right? It was a lot of good games last week.
Yes, there were.
Outside the Clemson. We're going to get to that later on, but go ahead because
we just got a lot to talk about. The Heisman, players declaring for the draft. There's a lot of football stuff going on still.
Before we get into like all the games from last week, I want to hear what you got to say about the Heisman and your thoughts.
I posted on Facebook.
Okay.
Did you see it?
I did. I've been working all day.
No. So Devontae Smith from Alabama won the Heisman.
Oh, I have a big section I was going to talk about him today. Wonderful, outstanding player.
Yes, and so actually I was talking to my grandmother, and we were talking about everything. Trevor Lawrence came in second.
Okay.
And we were talking about how Trevor Lawrence had won the fan vote, but he won the voters poll for Devontae Smith did. But how his story is still such an inspiring story because he wasn't highly recruited out of high school, and he had one offer coming out of high school.
Wow.
And people told him that he just needed to stop playing football and that he wasn't going to make it in football because he was 5'10" and 147 pounds coming out of high school.
Right.
As a senior.
Okay. So
he kept on. And he won the Heisman. So I think his story in itself is excellent. It just
inspirational too.
Right.
Yeah.
It just teaches, and I guess like if the Heisman voters look at the overall story of a player and say, not only is he the best player or potentially one of the best players this season,
right?
But also just his full storyline to go along with that,
right?
So I mean, it's fair. He has had an excellent season. He has one more game to play, so we'll see how he does. And it's crazy how you always talk about, and I don't want to get off of football, but how you always talk about everything happens for a reason. And there's always a reason why things happen. He may not have been in that position had Alabama's best receiver not got injured at the beginning of the season. Right. Because Waddle was the one who was projected to be a Heisman candidate and to be the top leading receiver for Alabama. I mean, he was on his way before he got injured. So him getting injured, not that an injury is good, it opened the door
right,
for, his teammate. And then he became, the leading receiver for Alabama and, won the Heisman.
That's an incredible story too. And for like the kids to see something like that. And what's interesting is I plan on talking about that on Wealth Building Monday. It's chasing your dreams. Right. Right? Because it's not all about the money. Like, you got to start off with that passion of chasing your dreams.
Hold on. I'm going to tell y'all what's funny. we never really sit down and tell each other what we're going to talk about on our specific episodes.
Right.
But
Because it makes it more that authentic.
Yeah, right. So just to give you, I was going to talk about buying a house ain't easy. So it's about the process.
Right.
And how everything, it alludes back to everything happens for a reason. And there's always a process that you have to go through to get to that point.
And having that passion and learning how to endure and fight and push through
the hardships.
Right. Which I'm sure he did too.
Right.
So that's going to be one great story. I'm interested in like hearing maybe like 5 years from now and he have a book or something, or he sit down and do like an hour interview and just talk about the story. You ready to talk about some football?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Man, the Auburn versus Northwestern game. You predicted that one too. You predicted that they was going to win. So number 14, Northwestern came out 35-19 over Auburn. I expected Auburn to have done better, but
with Auburn, they did have they fired their coach, so you have a new coach coming in, and it's going to take some adjusting and getting acclimated to a new coaching system. So whenever you lose a coach, just like South Carolina right now, I mean, they're getting rid of coaches left and right in South Carolina because the coach that they hired is bringing in coaching staff. So
I wonder what Miami is going to do about some of their coaches.
I mean, what's crazy is they have stories out like the coaching carousel that goes on in the off season and what's going on in the coaching world. And we'll be able to discuss that, after the national championship game and get more into like the drafts and who's declared for the draft and things like that.
So, quarterback Peyton Ramsey for that team did 24 completions for 35 attempts. Not bad, but not a great game. He also had 10 runs, 50 yards. That's good for a quarterback. Yeah, averaging 5 yards a run. So he did good. I think he's going to have a good future.
Right.
Georgia versus Cincinnati. Oh,
now,
man.
This is the game I want to talk about.
This is the game, guys.
So I predicted Cincinnati.
Your predictions was on.
Yeah, that was a close, like, nail-biter down to the wire game. That if y'all didn't watch that game, y'all missed a really good football game.
But it was last week. You said it was going to be a competitive game.
Yes.
You said it was going to be close too.
Yeah.
By a 3-point margin. And it's crazy that the score was 24-21. Yeah. A 3-point margin. I think yours was like 35 to something.
Yeah, I thought that it would be a little higher scoring, but still was a very competitive game.
Quarterback JT Dan, you've got to give it up for him. 392 yards. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, good. Like, these quarterbacks are carrying their teams.
Typically, I
mean, just this season, just seeing how they're performing, coming out, putting out like 390, 400 yards. Yeah. We're going to get to Trevor Lawrence. Even though Clemson lost, we're going to come back to that. But he performed well, too. I won't say his best game, but he did perform well. He
still had over 400 yards.
He had 400 yards on the dot. That was interesting. 400 yards on the dot.
400 yards.
Mm-hmm. Cincinnati. Cincinnati, I had predicted them to win because they had a good season. And they did good against Georgia. They stopped the rush. And, so Georgia got a good team when it comes to putting up the rushing yards. So they held them down on the rush, down to 45 yards. Mm-hmm. They couldn't stop that pass game, though.
Yep.
They couldn't stop the pass game.
But that was a good game. That was a really good game.
Yeah, it was a really good game.
What happened to Florida?
Are we just trying to go back to like the state of Florida to talk about the teams in Florida? Because I was disappointed in Florida.
Just saying, that was a game.
Florida, I don't know what happened. Florida,
I could tell you what happened.
And I thought it was going to be a good game.
Their leader sat down. Their leader went and sat down. That's what happened.
And that's what happened.
Seriously, Trask threw 3 interceptions in the first quarter and then went and sat on the bench. Not a leader.
Yeah.
He's not a leader.
And they came out in the second half. They just didn't seem fired up. You know, normally at halftime, you go in the locker room. Everybody get riled back up, and they just came out and they just didn't seem like they were.
Because all year, Trask has been their hype man.
And I complimented him too. I thought he was going to do very well.
And then he threw 3 picks, and instead of going out there and leading his team back from the deficit that was created off of the picks, he went and sat down. Just went and sat down. That's not a leadership quality.
Right. But things like
you win with your team and you lose with your team.
And that has to be learned too. You know, so you would think at that level it would be there. He would be there. Yeah. But that's something that you learn as you going through, you know, like 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, like high school, like you learning that.
Could you imagine like Clemson was down at halftime and Trevor Lawrence being like, well, I'm going to declare for the draft, so I'm just going to sit out the rest of the game.
You know what's interesting? The announcer said that in the 4th quarter, he was on the sideline like hitting people helmets like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And they was down. I mean, like they had no chance of trying to come back at that point.
But it's the leadership.
It's the leadership,
right? It's the leadership.
So it's an excellent
you don't
quality.
Give up.
Yeah, even though you know you're going to lose, like, hey, we got here. Look where we're at right now.
Right.
You know.
Right.
You got to that end road, and there's going to be a season and a season. You know, you go to the pros. Like, you can't win them all, but you got to stay positive.
What about that Coastal Carolina game?
I like Coastal Carolina. Now, you know, I wasn't a big fan of Coastal Carolina, but you made me a Coastal Carolina fan. Let's talk about that game, because I know that you got.
I think that they're going to continue to build. It's going to be interesting to see how they respond to their success this year, because their coach was named Coach of the Year.
Right.
And it's going to be very interesting to see how they respond to the success. Like, can you continue? Because that's the hardest part. You can have success for a year.
Right.
You can have success for 2 years. But how do you, year in, year out,
create that longevity?
Create the longevity.
The longevity is important, right? Because that's what people, like, it stays in your mind. You can't just have, like, one good year. Or you got to, like, continue.
That's why what I didn't understand, and yes, I'm getting on to some Clemson fans out there that was talking about one and done, and is Clemson done? Like, we've won 6 ACC championships in a row. Do you know how hard that is?
Right.
You know how many teams just wish they could make it to their championship game?
That's true.
Like 1 year?
But you know what? I'm going to say something, though. Your expectations was high also last week on Football Friday, last Friday.
It was. And sometimes, you know, you have the orange colored glasses on, but at the same time,
the orange colored glasses on.
But in the same,
she was Clemson blind.
In the same respect, I stick by and stand by my comments. Ohio State shouldn't have been there playing only 6 games, because they did not compete like the other teams that were in there did. And now that they have players hurt and they have players that have COVID, they want to push out the national championship game.
Let's talk about them, since we're talking about Ohio State and Clemson. Let's talk about that game.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that there were things that happened in the game that I did not agree with. I'm not going to go into all of those things.
Right.
I don't believe that was a targeting call on Scholasky.
Oh, that was a big highlight. Yeah.
I don't agree with that call. When a quarterback becomes a runner and he's running the ball, Scholasky is making a football move to tackle the runner with the ball. The way that the runner maneuvers or falls into place, if you're already in a tackling mode, if Fields wouldn't have made that move to cut, then Scholasky's helmet wouldn't have went in his ribs.
Well, let me say something,
He wasn't.
Let me say something. The concern was that he led with the crown of his helmet.
But it appeared that way because of the football move that Fields made. He didn't lead with the crown of his helmet. If Fields would have been in the same position as, I mean, it happens in all the games. There's always a game or two games or a few games that happen in the football week that have a targeting call. That's why a lot of commentators and people that watch football say that a targeting that needs to be like basketball, where they have a flagrant 1 and a flagrant 2. Like, you don't just kick somebody out of the game because of a
One bad
hit,
right?
If you're doing it with malice and your intent is to hit somebody in the head or hit somebody in the neck and you're hitting them head on,
with the intent to cause injury, right?
Right, that's different. But, you know, it is what it is. And
you're right. Because I've seen plays where, like, it was obvious he couldn't turn. Like, the player couldn't turn as he was going for the hit because whether it's a quarterback or running back,
or
they shifted, or, you know, and at the last 1 second, you can't adjust like the way you're about to hit someone.
Right.
So, yeah, I agree. Because some of the calls that you see, like, what in the world?
Right. But I think that's something that the NCAA and officiating is going to have to look at, is how can they dumb it down and have, you know, hey, this was a not so good hit. We're going to warn you this time. We're not going to kick you out of the game.
Or
it
flag
could be a flag, 15 yards.
15 yards.
You know, first offense.
Right.
And then if they continue to have the problem, then kick them out of the game. Right. Because then it's a problem. You know, if it continues to happen, then it's a problem.
That's just like, you see it and it's obvious.
Right.
And you're like, oh, whoa, no, you can't do that.
You did that on purpose.
Yeah, get them out the game.
Yeah, get them out the game. So I think there's a lot, and there's a lot of talk of that right now. So I think as it progresses, we may see changes to that rule, and we need to. I mean, we need to see changes that make it fair for players, because you might as well play flag football if you can't tackle. You know, if they're going to throw a flag every tackle, then you might as well just put some flags out there and let them play flag football. I mean, you're going to get hit, and you're going to hit.
Right.
I mean,
I understand they're trying to create measures of safety. Right.
But it has to make sense.
Right. Let's keep going. So we'll be here, like ESPN talked about this for like 10 minutes. Our show will be over.
No, it's. I think the conversations are good though.
Yeah, definitely.
Because, you know, but I don't think Clemson's one and done. They haven't been for years. I mean, look how many years Clemson's been in the playoffs. Look how many years they've been in the ACC championship. We'll be back. I'm good.
What do you have to say about the performance? So Ohio State 49 to Clemson 28, right? And
what I was talking about the offensive line, and that's what a lot of people were talking about, is the offensive line performance during the game. And I agree. The offensive line has got to be able to hold its own.
Right.
I think we have a young offensive line.
Are you trying to start or grow your business? Well, welcome to YMA Financial, where we have created the ultimate platform for entrepreneurs and business owners. We specialize in small business startups. Our accredited business consultants will help turn your dream to a reality. We'll help obtain your business documentation, help you establish and build business credit, and whether you're working from home or storefront, we'll help fully launch your business. Check out our website at www.ymafinancial.com or give us a call at 888-531-6611.
We've saw that in and out in some of the games this year where we didn't get as many rushing yards. I mean, you've pointed out games that we didn't get as much rushing yards. I think that comes from having an inexperienced or a not as experienced offensive line, even though Clemson plays the next man up. It's not an excuse. It is they need to be better coached and they need to perform better, so they got to get them ready for next year.
What's interesting, something that you pointed out about Travis Etienne. So he had 10 runs, 32 yards, right? You were like, that's it? Like, you averaging almost like 3 yards per run. But you talked about having him out, right, for that the option.
Right.
And so, you know, I went and did my homework and looked at how he performed, right? And it's interesting that he had four catches for 64 yards. I mean, that's higher than a receiver.
Yeah.
Right. And also on the kick returns, he had 2 returns for 41 yards.
Yeah.
So if you see him as a overall player, extraordinary player.
Yeah, but that's the difference, though. Clemson, like, when you have Alabama, they have a true running back. Their running back isn't out catching balls out of the backfield.
Right.
Their running back is lining up behind the quarterback, and they're running the ball.
And he could run.
And he can run. Harris can run the ball. What Clemson does is they create, because Amari Rodgers, look at him. He started as somewhat of like a tailback running back, and they transitioned him into the slot receiver that he is. And they make their players versatile as to what works for their scheme. Travis Etienne, they even talked about that in the offseason for the last couple of years, him practicing on catching in the offseason, and that's all he would focus on is working on his receiving and catching and, learning how to dominate that side of it as well.
Ohio State did well, though. Their quarterback,
they did. Justin
Fields, young man, is remarkable. He had a great game, and he played hurt, too. And I like Ohio State. I don't know how many games they played, but take not the team, but the player. Him as a player, his performance, he had 22 completions for 28 attempts.
No, I know. Justin Fields did excellent.
6 touchdowns, too.
But I will tell you, that coach should have never put him back into that game.
Being injured?
With broken ribs.
Yeah.
That was, and this is.
Kudos to him, though. His heart for being out there on that field.
Right. But this goes back to the contradiction that I just don't like contradictory stuff. Mm-hmm. So if you say everything's for the safety of the players, then don't put your player out there with broken ribs, because that's not for the safety of your players.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
But that's so you're talking about the coach doing having that option.
In general.
So you're saying that as a ref should say that's it, he can't come back out on the field.
In general, when coaches make decisions based off of who's playing and they say, they're trying to generate rules to have for the safety of the players, like, I understand that sometimes you're going to have injuries you can play through. Right. Like, if you have a sprained ankle, you can tape that up and they can play through that. I think some injuries are more serious, and I just don't think that was a good coaching decision.
I'm interested in seeing, what's the result, and
after the championship game.
Yeah. So hopefully he have a week to feel better. Alabama versus Notre Dame. Yeah, they gonna bring. They gonna try to put the pressure on them too. Alabama versus Notre Dame.
Nick Saban agreeing to move that game, because we all know how Nick Saban is.
Oh yeah, he was out he was out a day with the COVID, and then the next day he's over the COVID.
Yeah, I ain't got that no more. So
yeah, I'll be there on Saturday for the game. Yeah.
See y'all.
Yeah, I'll see you guys there. But
we talked about that already. That's crazy. Like the
Alabama versus Notre Dame. Go ahead.
Ohio State.
No, their game last week.
Well, I said that was going to happen.
You said it was going to be a blowout, though. You said, actually, I took your phrase. You said it's going to be a slaughter fest.
Did you watch the game? What was the score?
31-14. That's not a slaughter fest. Like a slaughter fest is 60 points to 14.
Nick Saban must have been in a nice mood that day.
I predicted the score was going to be 42-21. So it wasn't too far off. But I did say last week that if Alabama could put up 400 to 500 yards, that they was going to win. And you're like, they haven't played a strong team yet. But Notre Dame had held North Carolina to 298 yards, but they could not hold Alabama. Mac Jones, 25 completions for 30 attempts. Mm-hmm. Man, him.
Ian Book declared for the draft today, too. Notre Dame quarterback.
What do you think about that?
Him declaring for the draft?
Yeah.
Of course. You're going to have few players that just if they know that they're going in the second round, first round, second round, third round, if they're going to be a higher draft pick and teams are looking for that position, they're not going to leave that money on the table to come back to college. Very few do.
Very few.
I mean,
we've seen that with Clemson.
The year that all the defensive players for Clemson came back, when you had Wilkins come back and Watkins come back and Austin Bryant come back, I mean, that was just an anomaly. You had like 5 senior players come back that could have declared for the draft. And by the way, all of them were killing it in the NFL now. But they came back for, another year, and typically you just don't see that.
Mac Jones, extraordinary player. I've been saying it since the YMA Nation podcast started, and we started Friday football. I've been talking about Mac Jones, but 25 completions with 30 attempts. I mean, that's just extraordinary. 4 touchdowns out of that. Let's talk about Najee Harris.
Excellent player.
What do you think about that jump? The hurdle.
The hurdle.
And just extraordinary player. But with someone on his level, you have to be careful. I mean, because he has a great future ahead of himself.
Right.
So the last thing, especially right before going to the championship game, you can't risk that injury.
I think if they play and Justin Fields isn't 100% healthy and Ohio State is missing a lot of their defense, Alabama's definitely going to win that game.
I think even with Justin Fields being healthy, if he come out and he performed the way he performed last week, I still don't think that they're going to be able to hold the Alabama offense.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Devontae Smith, 7 catches for 130 yards. Like these are star players. Like yeah, and it's obvious too. 3 touchdowns. Devontae Smith, extraordinary player. Last thing we're going to talk about is this upcoming game on January the 11th. CFP National Championship, Alabama, number 1 Alabama undefeated versus the number 3 Ohio State undefeated.
Yep.
Yeah, it's gonna be a. What's your predictions? I'm interested. What are your predictions?
I think if Fields plays, which I think even with his injury there, he's gonna play. I think that's a given. Really depends on how many defensive players that Ohio State is actually going to be down. But if, they have pretty much all of their team in Alabama's, healthy or whatever, I would say it's going to be something like a 42-35 type game, Alabama.
I don't know if Alabama is going to give up that many points, but yeah, I do see it being a high scoring game. On the Alabama side, because Ohio State, they gave up 400 yards on the pass to Clemson. So, they're going to have to do a better job on that defensive end. And then you talking about threats like Najee Harris, Devontae Smith, they're going to have to do a better job.
Yep.
But, man, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Friday football.
Yes.
Yeah. So, guys, thank you. Wonderful YMA Nation podcast episode number 25.
25, guys.
So, we will see you guys on Monday.
Wealth Building Monday.
It's going to be a really good conversation. And if you watch this podcast and then you watch Monday, Wealth Building Monday, and just see how they two coincide. Some of the things you're talking about, like chasing your dreams, continuing to be inspired, like that passion, like those players in football, they have that passion.
Right.
So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. So, guys, make sure you like, comment, and
subscribe.
Say it again.
Subscribe.
Right. Like, comment, and subscribe. And all our true followers, we're going to have something special coming up for you guys. For New Year's Eve, we gave away $2,100. Bring it in 2021. So we're going to have some special guys. We will see you on Monday.
You gotta sacrifice. You wanna move
association. Yeah, see, that's the association. Joe.